there's a culture set there. So when new players come in, there's a trickle-down effect from the leaders, the veteran players, of how we're going to play.
Pickett has the upper hand, and she's played better. She gets in the attack better. She's more athletic for her team.
Bring Coffee in, because if Ertz comes in and is a total disaster, who's your other 6?
To quote my favorite comedian, Heather McMahon, absolutely not. You will never catch me dead getting married on any soccer field, football field, any stadium.
When you wore your socks down, it was telling the other team that you were not afraid of them, that they couldn't hurt you.
I love your eagerness to hit this topic because it's one of my favorite topics of the week. Welcome back into Straight from the Pitch. I'm Anna Witte, joined by Scotty Schweitzer, where we're talking NWSL and MLS on and off the pitch today. Let's start with NWSL. They're coming off week 2, heading into a FIFA week this upcoming week. Angel City and Orlando Pride was an exciting game. It was, especially in the second half, highly transitional. Angel City comes up with the win 2-1 thanks to an extra time goal and a PK goal. But for Angel City, they have the ability and the pieces to be an elite team. For starters, Scotty, what do you think is missing in week 2 headed into week 3 of NWSL play that's holding them back?
When I watch the game, and like you said, they have pieces all over the pitch, and dynamic pieces. You got McCaskill in the midfield, you got Thompson up top. They have players in the back. They're intelligent. They just look disjointed, and when I see a team that looks disjointed like this, it brings me back to the coaching. Like what is being done during the week to make us understand each other and each other's role so much better. When I watch the Angel City game and the Orlando game, I thought Orlando deserved points in that game, either 1 point or the 3 points. I thought, they had some really good chances. They were able to exploit positions in the midfield. I know that Angel City was doing some things with their subbing, and they were trying to get minutes for certain players. But I think week 2 of a season, I mean, you need your points. You need to get your points. You're going into a place where it's a good field. It's a good stadium. The fan base wasn't there to support Orlando, which is a little shocking because they usually do such a good job with their fan base. But as a player, you're wanting to go into that environment and produce and get points. And I don't think they were ready to play. I know there's talk about this cross-country travel and the time changes, but that's been around forever. It's been around for years. And as players, we have to get used to that, and we have to understand what we need to do to be able to play when we have these obstacles in front of us. So for me, I think what are they doing in practice all week that makes them understand their roles and styles of play and understanding of each other to make them better, to be better players. And that's what I thought when I watched the game, because I thought Angel City looked really good week 1. And we talked about that was my second team where I was picking to win a championship. And after week 2, I'm not picking them to win a championship. They didn't look like that same team. They weren't in front of their crowd. They didn't have that adrenaline. But for me, the beginning of the season, even if you lost your first game, you're still in it. So you have to come out with a different energy. And I thought they didn't have the energy. I thought Orlando did have the energy. And when I watched the game, Angel City got their 3 points, and it's a good thing to win when you don't play bad and get your points. But I think that they needed to do better than what they showed last weekend.
You mentioned the cross-country travel, and I called the OL Reign game last week when OL Reign was traveling to Washington for their first game. And Laura Harvey brings up the travel often. She said, sometimes we'll travel 4 days in advance. Sometimes we'll get there a week in advance. We try and figure out what works for players going cross-country. You're also hopping time zones. And she's mentioned it can be difficult. Obviously, they lost the game to Washington. That's something we could have seen Angel City deal with. Also, the humidity down in Florida is something they definitely don't deal with in Los Angeles. Not making excuses for what we saw on the field, but that certainly could have been a factor. But you're right. I don't think Angel City set the tempo the way that they could have, with Orlando having so many new players looking disconjointed at times. They didn't take advantage of those moments. For Angel City's back line too, Sarah Gordon coming back from her ACL injury, I thought she could be a good addition in the wide areas. Leave Paige Nielsen and Megan Reed, who played together a lot of last season together in that center back role. That's how we saw Orlando's goal. Their forward, Messiah Bright, dribbled right between Gordon and Megan Reed for a fairly easy finish for Orlando to tie the game. And in the extra minutes, Angel City comes out on top. So there are so many different pieces that Angel City could fix, but I think connecting all of the lines is a good place to start. And you mentioned it's a week where they have off. It's a FIFA window. They're not losing many international players. This is where they could kind of come together and collect themselves before they head into the latter half of the first part of the season.
Yeah, I agree. With this week off, I think we're going to find out a lot about coaching, I think. This is a great opportunity. We've all been able to see teams play 2 games. We can watch film, we can watch what they're looking at, what formations they're looking to run. And of course, we're going to change formations here and there throughout the season based on personnel that we have available and personnel that we're playing against. But I think this is a great opportunity for these coaches. You have a week. It's almost like a week of preseason to go back through it. We know what's working for us. We know what's not working for us. We've seen it in a real game tempo. We've seen it in a real game match with the adrenaline and everything. And now we can make some adjustments. And I think we're going to find out the better coaches are going to have better results in week 3 of the NWSL games. And I think that's something for me that I'm real interested in seeing. Because like you said, with Angel City, just talking about staying on this game, is they look like they have role players who are set as just role players. And that's not the game of soccer. Of course, we have role players, but they want McCaskill to be making through balls, Endo to be making through balls, Thompson to getting the ball on the end of the ball. Like the other players are like, you're right, why is Gordon playing center back? And I thought she did pretty good until the goal. But Riley's not attacking. She didn't attack as much in this game as she did in the first game. Mm-hmm. And when she did, it was sparingly. And it was almost safe. So this is a game where you're going into Orlando, you're on the road, that Marta's missing the game. They get an injury early to a starter. So like there's adjustments that have to be made within the first 20, 15 minutes of the game where we should be on the attack. We should be on the forefront. And Orlando was on the forefront. So I think this is going to be an interesting week for these coaches. No excuses that you're missing your international players. You have players that are going to be on these fields that need to understand the situation that they're in. And you as a coach are going to need to understand the situation that you're putting them in. So I think this is a great week for these coaches to really step up to the plate and earn the money that they're getting paid.
Not only this week do they have off, but then they have the whole other week before they actually prepare for the game. So in some instances, it's even 2 weeks to sit down and figure out what needs to change. There was an incident that happened in the game that, Scotty, you and I kind of disagree on. It was a VAR situation. Haley McCutcheon goes down inside the box, a defender for Orlando, and as she's falling, her back arm catches herself when she's hitting the ground. An Angel City forward is striking the ball. It hits McCutcheon's arm, and the referee, it gets sent to VAR. Referee doesn't look at it herself, but they call it a PK. Anna Morehouse for Orlando saves Angel City's Claire Emsley's shot. However, I don't think that was a PK. That definitely was not a PK in my eyes, because the rule heading into this season was NWSL said if you are falling and you are catching yourself and the ball hits you, it is not a foul because you didn't try and block the ball with your arm, because you are protecting yourself. And in that instance, McCutcheon is clearly protecting her collarbone, her shoulder. Scotty, you say it should have been a PK. Tell us why.
Okay. So when you go back and watch the replay, and I've watched it a few times now, the shot is hit it's got a left-footed curl to it, hooking back towards the goal. The play had come across the field left, so everyone is shifting left, goalie included, coming to the near post. Mm-hmm. She does protect herself, 100%. It hits her back arm. There is only one defender behind her, and she's not directly behind that defender. So she'll have to see it late and then make an adjustment to clear it. Otherwise, that ball is sneaking into the goal easily. It's on frame. When I watch it and as a player, it's a PK. When we hear what the ruling is, it shouldn't be a PK. My whole career, I don't think whoever runs the refereeing looks at a scenario, says, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the rule we're going to put into place, and has looked at every single case scenario. So when they're saying, okay, if you're going to ground and you're making a slide, are they talking about a cross where it's not going on frame? Did they take this into consideration, these refereeings and whoever's in charge of the laws of the game, and say, okay, well, when it is going into the goal, even though you didn't mean to hit it and it hits your arm, which is protecting you from falling, Like that ball's to me, that ball's going in. I don't think that defender's making that save. So she's taking a scoring chance away. But by the letter of the law, it isn't a handball. And I think they didn't look at every case scenario and say, okay, well, when it's on frame, we have to look at this. Did it stop a scoring chance? Is it going to, do we have players behind there? So, like, I think they're a little bit confused. And at the end of the day, they've hurt themselves. Because as a Angel City player, I think it's a handball. As an Orlando player, no, that's not the rule. Switch it and go down the other end. All the Orlando players want a handball, and the Angel City say, no, that's not the rule. And then we've already talked about it a few shows here now. Soccer gods. So if it's wasn't a handball, maybe that's why the save was made. It was such a bad PK. I don't know. But for me as a player, I think as a player, as a person in the game, even as a coach, I'd probably complain if it was my team getting the handball. But as a coach, I'd look back at it and be like, you know what, that was a handball that was going in. We gained an advantage that would have kept that ball out using our arm. Not that we meant to do it or anything, but we did gain an advantage of stopping a goal. So for me, that would have been a handball.
This
I
is
probably
why
wouldn't have been that nice in the interviews after.
I was going to say, this is why I love our dynamic, because you come from a coaching mentality and I come from a broadcasting mentality, where when we went and spoke with the NWSL and figured out what are the VAR rules, because as a broadcaster, you want to get it right. You want to understand it. The rule is it clear and obvious that it was a handball, that something happened, that someone tried to take somebody out? That's the thing with VAR, is clear and obvious. So when we're told as broadcasters that, hey, if a player is protecting themselves when they go to ground, it's not a handball, that's the rule. We're broadcasters. We're calling the game. We're being told what happened. It may have not been the rule in the past, but that's what they've decided to go with now. Why wasn't it taken back and evaluated from a scoring chance opportunity? Because as a player, a lot of the times when you go to ground, it's when somebody is shooting. You're diving for it. It's the last chance to kind of stop that ball from going in the back of the net or going to your goalkeeper. So it does happen a lot. It makes me wonder, why didn't they think about that scenario? Because it will happen a lot this season.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a tough thing as a player. I actually was watching the Man U game, and being a Liverpool fan, I love the result. But it was Martinez, the Argentine who plays center back for Man U, and he blocked a shot. But you know how the Argentines and the Spanish players, Latin players do it more than anybody else. They put their hands behind their back. And the English commentator said, no one should have to play soccer like this. And that's me personally. I've never put my hands behind my back. It throws off my balance. It messes up my footwork. It's not something that I will ever do. I hope it doesn't hit my hands. I try not to keep my hands super wide, but putting my hands behind my back, to me as a player, that's so wrong for what I'm trying to do on the field and keep balance and keep my movements correct. That I feel like if he chops me, man, I'm beat, because there's no way I can recover from it, because my arms are so much of my balance and movement and throws my momentum around, that when they're behind my back, I'm handcuffed, just like it looks like. So I understand the reason players do it. I understand the rules of it in a sense, but like when we go through these things as a rules committee, man, we really have to take everything into consideration, because in a split moment, that's the beauty of the game for these referees. It is how they're seeing it. What was their angle? And I think, I don't know her name who was doing that game, but she's one of the referees I enjoy watching, because she doesn't get too involved in the game. She lets the game flow. She helps the game on its way. She's not there. She knows the fans aren't there to see her. So if she can be as quiet as she possibly can be and have the least amount to do in the game, it's better for the game. And she does that. And that's, like, again, what you say, when they talk to the VAR and we know they're talking, we don't know that conversation, because she called it initially as a handball. I thought it was too. Then it goes to VAR. I'm sure VAR's talking to them and saying, by the letter of the law, and she's got to make a decision, because she never went to the monitor. She never went to look at it again. So whatever their conversation back and forth was good enough for both of them to say, there's no reason to keep looking at it. Let the penalty kick be taken.
Right. It is very interesting. And even the scenarios too, how often the game changes and changes the rules when it comes to handballs, when it comes to players having to play with their hands behind their back, when it's okay if they don't, because if the ball hits them and their arms are, so close to their chest, obviously they're not trying to redirect the ball with it unless it's a certain range outside your body. in my opinion, I think that soccer has to stop changing the rules every year. So there's consistency, that the refs are on the same page, players are on the same page. We're not killing time with arguing over if something's a handball or whatnot and looking at VAR reviews. It's a consistent rule. And in soccer, there should be set in stone rules across all leagues so we can play the game and play it fairly.
I agree. I totally agree.
On the opposite side of the standings, because we have a team in the Pacific Northwest who has been crushing it from week one, let alone last season winning the NWSL championship, is Scotty's pick for the 2023 NWSL champions, Portland Thorns. They go to Kansas City for Kansas City's home opener and embarrass the heck out of the Current, winning 4-1. Sophia Smith gets a what do you call it? A hat trick, rather. So
Yeah,
why
first one ever, right?
yeah. Why to you is Portland so dominant from the jump?
I think one has to do with their history, for sure. They have great players, and they've had great players, and there's a culture set there. So when new players come in, there's a trickle down effect from the leaders, the veteran players, of how we're going to play and what we're going to do. Now, I'm going to bring this up early in my thought process of what I think about Portland, but Sam Coffey is a huge reason for this. I, I think Sinclair is a very good player. If Canada is playing and Ireland is playing, I'm going to watch the Ireland game. I like O'Sullivan better than I like Sinclair.
Mhm.
Sinclair does okay for Canada, but for Portland, she is a game changer. Whether it's through her passing, whether it's through her holding the ball up, she plays like a false nine that's really a 10. But she's allowed to do that because Coffey covers so much ground. And 4-1, I don't even think Coffey had a great game this week compared to the first game. She wasn't bad. She just wasn't her normal spectacular. She gave a couple balls away in the first half that normally she doesn't give away. But where her positioning was, man, when I watch a game, I'm always thinking, man, a player should be right there. She is, Coffey, right where I think she should be, sliding, shifting, covering ground, and she does all the dirty work as long as her team gets to win. And it allows these players around her who are superstars, Sophia Smith, Sinclair, they have superstars at that place. They're allowed to be who they are, and they can play with a little bit more freedom because they know all around the field, everyone is doing their job to make our job easier. And I think we can't say it's a coaching thing this year because he's only coached 2 games. This team looks just like they looked at the end of the year. And that's a great thing for a team to be able to do coming off a championship season because you get a little of a letdown. Oh, we're the champs. We just got to go out there and play. We can just do whatever. They look like they've gone into preseason. Last year wasn't good enough. They're trying to win every game. They're trying to score 5 goals, 4 goals a game. They are pressing the game. They go into Kansas City and they quiet the crowd instantaneously. They had no fear. They had no fear what they were walking into. They went there and they know they're the team. They have a swagger about them. But I think it's a culture that they have built over years and years and years. And from what they went through all of last year off the field stuff, I think that made them stronger as a unit and a team and a family. And you can see it when they play. But they're playing by far the best brand of soccer in America, boys and girls, men and women.
Right. No, I mean, you mentioned Sam Coffey. It's funny to think that she used to play more of a 10, an attacking role. And in college, the last few years, they switched her into the 6. It shows me, and it should show a coach like Vlatko Andonovski for the U.S. women's national team, that she can learn a position in 12 months and can fit into it and be seamless to drop off, play that 6 role, and play it so well for this Portland team. 2 other players for this Portland side are the outside backs in Megan Klingenberg and Natalia Kuika. They had the most touches on the pitch against Kansas City. They get forward, they get in the attack, and it's because this Portland team trusts Kelly Hubley and Becky Sauerbrunn as the center backs on the back line. They have that continuity. They know when they can fly forward and help into the attack. To be fair to Kansas City, they were missing one of their star center backs in Elizabeth Ball, so that gave Sophia Smith a little bit more freedom to get into the attack and get those 3 goals against them at their home. However, this Portland team, you said it, they have not missed a beat. The only way I would like to see Sophia Smith grow is her dropping off passes, dropping off a little bit more, not being so one directional to goal. I'd like to see Smith create with other players, and how could she grow with other people around her and not just be super one dimensional by herself. It works in this league now. However, there's plenty of years for her to grow, not only on this team, on the national team, and I'd like to see that grow.
I remember we talked, I don't know what episode it was earlier, though, and I said, I think Sophia Smith, with the talent that we have, should play the 9 for the U.S. because she does drop back in and play. And then we were talking about, well, that means maybe Alex Morgan has to start on the bench, but it's a tournament, so you're going to get games. I think Sophia Smith right now, I agree with you, but I think she can do that, but there's no reason to, because that's the role Sinclair fills on this team. She plays that holding false 9, top high 10 kind of a role, Coffee covering. Coffee also, when these outside backs who are getting all these touches, when they go forward, Coffee drops and their center backs split a little, so they're still. Now they're 3 in the back with your 6 being one of your center backs. I think it just works the dynamic of how they all know how they intertwine with each other is a beautiful thing. Going back with the national team, though, real quick, I want to touch on, I'm okay with Julie Ertz coming into camp. I truly am. I truly am, even though she hasn't played in 2 years, because of what she was as a player. But I have to think that he's thinking Sullivan is making the World Cup team. So why bring Sullivan in this trip? Bring Coffee in, because if Ertz comes in and is a total disaster, which could be after 2 years, I don't think so. But if she is, who's your other 6? Like, you're not looking at anybody else. We're not getting a look at anybody. I mean, Allie Long, I already said, I love the way she plays. She's totally different than Sullivan. Why isn't somebody has to come in with Ertz that we haven't seen? We've already seen Sullivan. Okay, even if you're taking her and you're saying she's your starter, I'm fine with that. Don't bring her to this trip. If you're bringing Ertz in, you're bringing Ertz in to be the starter or to be the backup. Well, if she's terrible, then you're not bringing her in at all. And who's that 6 that you are bringing in that we haven't seen? Because we've only seen really Sullivan get into that role. Pretty much, because when Sullivan comes out, we kind of change the dynamic of the way we play, and we play with more of a 2 10s and not really even a 6. It's a because we can usually against the teams we're playing. I think this is a good game for Ertz to go into this weekend because you're going to play against O'Sullivan, and I think Sean Mayhaw said she's the best 10 in the world. I would say she's the best 8 maybe, but she's definitely not a 10. She's not that type of player. She's the best midfield leader, maybe, in the world, maybe. I really like the way O'Sullivan plays, too, but she goes in there, great. We're going to know if Ertz can play or not because she's going to be matched up against him. We're going to see this matchup. This is O'Sullivan, to me, is what Ertz was without the physical presence that Ertz had, and maybe a little bit better of a soccer brain. But why are we not getting to see Coffee come into this? I just, to me, it's like, I'm not just saying it because I'm friends with her. I don't even know this girl, Coffee. I know she went to Penn State. I know she played for Match Fit in New Jersey, but she's done some unbelievable things. I think we talked about it earlier this week. She passed 47 passes completed 47 passes out of 52 passes in the first game.
90% passing.
That's ridiculous in that role. It's not like she was 90% like sometimes the goalie could be 90% because there's no pressure on them. She's in the middle of the park. She's got 2 or 3 players on her at all times. She's got good players against her. She's usually marking their best player, the other team's best player, and she completes 90% of their passes. They win 4-1. They win 4-1. They're a champion. Like I just, to me, I'm going to need some clarity on why she's not getting more of a look. I just don't understand it.
Hopefully we can get some clarity this week. Scott, you jumped the gun on our next segment.
Sorry.
You started talking Julie Ertz. I was like, wait, because we have to preface it with the national team.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We were talking Portland.
I love your eagerness to hit this topic because it's one of my favorite topics of the week. But the U.S. women's national team, April 8th and April 11th, are taking on Ireland in both of their matches. And the question is, what do you want to learn from these 2 games? You mentioned Julie Ertz, and you really hit the nail on the head for it, and I don't have to be redundant because I completely agree. I will say one thing. When I called the Louisville-Washington game this week, and we asked head coach for Louisville, Kim Bjorkgren, where he feels like they can exploit this Spirit team, and he said when his team is stretched in high pressure. Washington Spirit don't do a good job in transition because they get stretched. To me, that read that Andy Sullivan is getting stretched in the midfield, and she doesn't have that speed to catch up with Sanchez, Hatch, Rodman, etc. in the front line. So there's that space in the middle of the field, which reads to me as well on the national team. You need someone in that center of the park to have the pace, the speed, the athleticism to get up and down throughout an international match. So yes, I think you leave Sullivan at home, you bring in Ertz, you bring in Sam Coffey, and you allow them to fight for the role. Also, maybe it could be one of those things where they feel like they need to give players caps and Andy Sullivan needs another cap. I don't know the politics around that aspect of it. That's where my head goes a little bit, and think what you want about that, but could be a thought.
Yeah, I agree. So going on to what I like to see from the national team, well, based on who you brought in, based on the players that you brought into this trip, well, then we need to dominate. Like, it's not good enough just to see players anymore. And I don't want to hear that from the coaching staff. I want to know if we're playing Ireland, then we need to win by 4 goals. I think we're that much better of a team. If this is our World Cup team that you're bringing in, sure, we're looking at Ertz. I got it. Great. We're looking at her. Great. But who's coming in with them? And we know we should dominate. This is our team. We haven't been bringing in a whole bunch of different people every time we have a international break. It's pretty much been the same group of girls. So you pretty much have your set players, except for here or there, 1 or 2 players. So if this is it, then we need to go into this. Those players need to know this is the team, and you're playing your way off the team basically if we don't dominate. And that's what I want to see. I don't want to see a specific play. I like to see Ertz. I like to see where she's at. I like to see, where her fitness is, where her mindset is. Sure, but the rest of the players, we've been watching them. We've been looking at them. We've been seeing them. I want to see now us dominate. I want to see us control the tempo of the game. I want us to see us change the speed of the game. I want us to attack with ferociousness. I want us to attack with a purpose, and I want goals. If this is our team, this is it. This is it. Let's go for it. If this is who you're going to keep bringing in, then you've made it pretty much. You've made up your mind on who's coming. Now get their roles set, get their minds right. We don't need on the girls' side going to the World Cup and Hatch getting told right before the tournament, oh, you're going to be limited minutes. I don't need another Berhalter Reina problem. I need us to know this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, and this is what we're looking for. And I want everybody on page. And if you can't be on page, tell me now, and we can get rid of you. And because we have tons of talented players in the United States that can go and play and take your spot. So are you down for the cause? If you are, let's get after it. If you're not, then we don't need it. We don't need it. We're going with one mission to stay number one and to win a World Cup.
The national team has 4 months before the World Cup kicks off July 20th, which isn't a ton of time. I mean, it's some time, but NWSL is happening right now. So that also means that some of these players are closer to 90 minutes fit. They've gotten in 180 minutes, let's say, over the last few weeks with the NWSL. So they understand the pace of a game. They've been going through training. So they're at that level to take on this Ireland team. I agree with you. I want to see them be dominant, but there are 2 players I would like to see from the national team. Gotham's forward Lynn Williams has 1 goal this season. Washington Spirit's Ashley Hatch had a brace last weekend, and she's got 2 goals on the season. I'd like to see them fight for that forward position, that off the bench role. I know some people might lean towards Lynn Williams, but I think Ashley Hatch might have something that she can bring to this team as well. Let them fight it out. You mentioned it should be Sam Coffey and Julie Ertz. Let's see Hatch and Lynn Williams fight for that role. Also on the back line, I would like to see Crystal Dunn play a lot more than Sofia Huerta. I don't think Huerta should be in that starting back line for this national team. She hasn't been really effective for the OL Reign. She's not really getting forward. She only had 1 cross this past week, and that's the only threat she provides for either team she plays for. She's a decent defender, but Crystal Dunn is the clear and obvious decision for this back line for the national team. So I'd like to see that. Disappointed that Louisville's Carson Pickett didn't make the roster and see what she can provide for this team. Maybe step over Huerta because they play a similar role, similar position in the NWSL. Personally, Pickett has the upper hand and she's played better. She gets in the attack better. She's more athletic for her team.
I agree. I think Huerta is very one-dimensional and very predictable as a player. I don't think she's a terrible player, but when we go to the World Cup, we're going to be playing against great players. and we're going to be against great coaches and great teams that are going to be understanding what we're all about. So for me, again, I agree. We maybe don't talk enough about Pickett. I think Pickett is a great defender who is also great with services and gets into the attack. So she gives you two different roles as playing the same position. And we don't have a lot of defenders that do that. I think Emily Fox has been great with the national team. She hasn't shown me anything with the Courage this year, and that is the truth. She hasn't really shown me anything. She hasn't done anything bad, but the Courage are going to need her to be great, and she has not played great for them yet. She's basically just being a role player playing as an outside back. And for the Courage to do anything, I think this year, they're going to need her to be a threat offensively, not just someone that shuts down a winger on a team. And when you go back to, I agree with you, Hatch and Lynn Williams, I think Lynn Williams is good. I think she serves a purpose on the field. I think she helped the Courage win a lot of games when she was here. My problem is Lynn Williams is another version of Trinity Rodman, who's another version of Swanson, who's another version of Sophia Smith if we put them on the outside. Hatch is something different. If the game is not going the way we thought it was, if they're doing something, Hatch can hold up play. She doesn't always look just to get in behind. Hatch can score goals with her head. Hatch can score goals with her knee. She reminds me of an old Van Nistelrooy. She toes the line. She's not doing it based on athleticism. She's doing it based on reading of the game, her understanding, and she's very good at knowing what she can do. She plays with inner south. She's not trying to take players on 1v1 and beat them and do step overs, and so that's not her game. She knows her role and she plays it well. Maybe we take her and she doesn't play a minute, but there's going to be a game where we might need a hold up 9 that just holds the ball up, lets us get out of the back, lets us stay connected, lets us play together, and it works. Whereas when we sub out Rodman and we bring in Lynn Williams, there's no change for the other team. They're playing the exact same style of play. So our defenders can stay the same. Our formation can stay the same. The way we slide, the way we shift, everything stays the same. A couple years ago, maybe more than a couple, Holland had this problem. Holland trained all their forwards the same way, all their midfielders the same way, all their defenders the same way. They were doing trying something new. But what happened is when their team wasn't winning and they made subs, they were just bringing in a weaker version of whatever they just subbed out. So that's basically what I'm not saying Lynn Williams is a weaker than Trinity Rodman or not. I'm just saying they're the same player. They're basically the same player. So that doesn't help in a game where the game's not going our way. We need to make changes because the player plays a different style of play in the same position.
Hatch certainly has a far better first touch than Lynn Williams, too. She can lead herself into space much better than Williams can. So it will be fun to see who head coach for the U.S. Women's National Team, Vlatko Andonesky, decides to go with on April 8th and April 11th. So we'll be watching. Comment below. Let us know what you think about the starting 11, what you want to see, what you want to learn from this team. This will be a fun final few matches potentially before we head to the World Cup on July 20th. Switching over to MLS, the team who we think have been the most exciting in this league and have made it so fun to follow is St. Louis City. Gets their first loss handed to them by Minnesota United off a penalty kick goal this past weekend. Scotty, how did Minnesota slow down and eventually lead St. Louis into their first loss?
So I watched this game a couple times now because
How many times?
3 times.
Okay.
Because I really wanted to see it. So this is what I noticed. St. Louis and Minnesota, before the game, they are the 2 bottom teams at possession. They don't need the ball to win. That's not their style of play. They attack defensively, press defensively, high up the pitch most of the time, high up the pitch, win the ball back, have talented players who can get a goal and a result and get a positive out of your mistake super quickly. So that's how both teams play. That's both teams' philosophy. In this game, I know the score was 1-0. I know Minnesota won. St. Louis was by far the better team. So after the game, yes, we lost. We're upset. As a player, you understand that. But you're also saying, we'll play them tomorrow. We'll beat them. We'll beat them by 100. That team is not better than us. So they still have that confidence going in. But what happened was because St. Louis was able to possess in this game, the possession, you stretch yourself out in order to stretch out the defense. Well, Minnesota is very, very good defending as a team, second best to St. Louis. But when they did that, St. Louis got stretched, and when Minnesota was able to win the ball back, in the very beginning, they did exactly what we said last week. To beat St. Louis, you draw them in, and then you switch the play. They had a couple chances like that early. St. Louis figured it out and didn't lose the ball there. But what then would happen was, because they were possessing, their middle got stretched. Lavin got high. They had all their big boys were playing. The kid from Aston Villa was in the middle. What's Vasilich or something like that, I think his name is. They had all their guys playing. So because they were doing so well offensively, you get a false sense of security and you start to creep higher and higher. And they were getting attacked back through their middle. And I mean, Minnesota was killing them back through the middle when they had their opportunities to. Then on the goal, it's just a horrible decision by the center back. There was no reason to tackle. None. Mm-hmm. Your defender was coming across. He was cleaning the ball up. The angle was wrong. It was on the forward's left foot. He's a righty. There was really no reason. Everything was perfect. Just stay up. The thing was, and I don't remember the center back's name, I'm sorry, but he had made like 5 crunching tackles throughout the game, and they were clean and they were perfect. So I'm guessing he thought he was like just on his game tackling, because he actually comes across and his initial tackle, he tackles his own player that's coming back and clearing the ball, and then he clips with his knee the forward. And this one too, they can argue all they want. That's a penalty kick. There was no reason to do what you did. And that is the only scenario where I think now, do we have to look at as a team, as a coaching staff, hey, it's only 5 games. There's a lot of games left. Like, we cannot think we're the champions already. We still have to stay disciplined. We still have to be smart. We still have to, because I thought both center backs, and they've been very good, but like the kid Parker, he puts his hands on a lot of people, and he's a big, strong boy. He's going to, if I'm watching film, I'm telling my forward, when you feel his hands on you, he opens up his arms, and he's stronger than you think, so go down. Because there's a couple times he didn't get called for fouls. If the player would have just went down, he would have got called for a foul. But that's the way he plays. He had a great game. He's one of his better games, I thought, Parker. And I thought they were fine. They were clean. I thought St. Louis was, like I said, by far the better team. But because they had possession so much, that actually stretched themselves out, and Minnesota was able to attack through them having so much. They made their gaps on their own, St. Louis. It wasn't like Minnesota could break them down. That's not what was happening. Minnesota could steal the ball and attack real fast into basically spaces that were just being told to them by St. Louis, not being able to occupy them. But as a coaching staff, I go in, I say, we can't lose. We can't give up that penalty kick. We just can't do this. This is not, our season isn't about just, let's see if we can be the best expansion team ever. We're here to win championships. We've done things the right way. So now you have to go in there. It's almost, I personally think there's sometimes, not as a player, I don't think this, but it's good to lose. It's good to bring us back down to earth. And I think that's what St. Louis needed. Now, I'll also say this. Their fans are out of control.
They're the best.
They are out of control. They're all drinking. They're all yelling at the other team like they're the worst people in the world. But it's like, for me, that's an environment I want to play in at home. I want that. To be honest, I want to play like that on the road too. I want the fans to hate me on the road. So like, you could see it when they scored the penalty kick. They had their hands up. Come on, say what you were saying.
Yes,
say it now.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Like, as a player, when I went on the road and got booed, man, I take that as a huge compliment. I take that as a huge compliment. And then when we come home, we need that crowd behind us. So like, I think this is a loss for St. Louis, but I think with this coaching staff and these players, they're going to figure out, hey, there's going to be games where, and as the season goes, because I think they are actually getting better at understanding themselves offensively, we are going to stretch ourselves because we are going to have possession, which is we haven't had in the first 5 games. And how do we compensate for that when we lose it? Because that's really where they were at risk, is when they lost the ball after possessing it and doing so well. Because they were also possessing it and breaking down Minnesota, which doesn't normally happen. Mm-hmm. But Minnesota does have some good defenders, good individual defenders, good 1v1 defenders. And when they would win it, man, they would just get right after the spaces that were left open by St. Louis being stretched offensively, which I think this coaching staff is going to figure out how to solve those problems too. We're going to be able to possess. We're going to possess offensively with defensive shape intact in case we lose it. So, like, this might be just what St. Louis needed to take them to the next level of how good they really could become, this loss. And I think that's how you have to look at it as a team and a coaching staff, not as such a super negative. We have to know that we can't make these silly mistakes in the back. And here's how teams can beat us if they let us possess.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting to watch. And the MLS, you can see, as we just talked about the NWSL, now they have 2 games under them. The MLS now has 6, and you can really see teams starting to take form of who their identity and who they're all about and what their style of play is. And again, as good as St. Louis is, let's not sleep on Cincinnati, because they're the only team who has – there's 2 teams, LAFC, who we already know is good and nobody sleeps on them, and Cincinnati, 2 teams with no losses. So Cincinnati is keeping themselves quiet. Nobody's talking about them a lot. They're under the radar, but they're playing very well too. And they also have a team that is very team-oriented, family-oriented, and that we discussed when we talked about Vasquez up top, not leaving and going to other places because he felt he owed it to the organization and to the fan base to stay in Cincinnati and bring them a title. I think they're on the right. They're all on the same page of what they're trying to accomplish. So I would say we have to keep our eye on Cincinnati too.
Cincinnati's not getting these 5-0 wins, though. They're kind of inching out the wins or inching out the ties. That's why Cincinnati's underneath the radar. You mentioned the fans, though. The broadcaster on the St. Louis Minnesota call made a good point. He's like, the seats are just props. No one's sitting down. Everyone's here. They're standing up. They want the drinks. They want the food. They want to be a part of this. My aunt that I talked about in one of the earlier episodes, her pictures, she's in the supporter section. She's having the time of her life. She's wearing the scarf. She's got a beer. You could see not only from the crowd photos, but also during the broadcast that people are enjoying this experience. And it's hard to go into a stadium and perform that way.
And it's loud because it's loud. It's not like Seattle Stadium was built for the Seahawks, and the way they built it, it keeps the sound waves in. So it's louder than it actually is.
Right.
St. Louis is not. Like, I had to turn down my headphones a couple times watching that game because they get so into they're into every tackle. They're into every pass. They're into, like, they don't sit down. They are into their team, and they feel that they're a huge part of it. And they're the one group where the supporter section almost seems like you don't really know where it is because it's everywhere. They're everywhere. The fans are going crazy everywhere. Sure, they're in the goal ends and everything, and they have their flags there. But the middle of the field is just as intense cheering as it is on the sides where the drums and the flags and everything are. So for me, it's really cool to watch this brand new team show everybody what it's all about.
The question is can St. Louis sustain it, though? And I would assume that city can keep the fans coming back for not just the inaugural season, but for years to come. And they have the right branding. They have the right people in the right roles to build that. So that's my favorite part of watching a St. Louis game. Obviously, the soccer on the pitch, but also the fandom around it. But when it comes to Minnesota, I have the same sentiments as well. Like Minnesota, it reminded me a lot of the San Diego, North Carolina game in the NWSL, where San Diego allowed North Carolina to have the ball in their own back half, just like Minnesota allowed St. Louis. The possession percentage at the end of the game, St. Louis had 55% of the possession. Minnesota only had 45%. And St. Louis, you could tell, were a little bit uncomfortable with how much they did have the ball. Minnesota also did a good job of keeping St. Louis in the wide areas instead of allowing Lavin and Klaus just to go right down the spine of the pitch and get those opportunities. And that's credit to the team defense by Minnesota just to keep pushing them. And as soon as St. Louis would kind of cut it inside off the top of the 18, there was 1 or 2 defenders stepping in to slow down that shot opportunity. So it was a collective effort by Minnesota, but you can tell that if you have really good team defensive principles and you keep St. Louis in the wide areas and let them have the ball, that's one way to beat them in this league.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's Adrian Heath's style. It's always been his style. He was like that in Orlando. I think he was at Stoke for a little bit, I'm pretty sure. He's an English coach, and that's team defense first. And I think I touched on it a couple shows ago when I played in Europe, and people would ask me, we talk about defense before we leave the locker room, not offense. We know we're going to get our goals, but our goals usually come from offense a lot of times when I was playing in Europe. And that's his philosophy, is like, he doesn't need the ball. He just needs the ball not to go in the back of his net. So he'll allow you to play and get yourself out of shape. It wasn't as textbook as what Holland did to the United States in the World Cup, but it was along the similar principles. He did a good job at the end subbing, knowing where guys that were on yellows, but he was also taking out some of his stalwarts because they had just lost their legs. And then
Mhm.
he just got fresh legs in there, and he trusted his players. And when you, as a coach, trust your players, that goes a long way for the next game too, not just the game that you're playing in.
Minnesota is now 3-2-2 on the season. So watching the trajectory of them now will be interesting now that they have this St. Louis win underneath their belt.
Minnesota is their 3 wins are all road wins. They're
Right.
unbelievable on the road. They're really good on the road, and that they have to do a little bit better at home for sure. But if you're winning road games, that goes a long way to making playoffs.
That game too reminded me, it gave me NWSL vibes at the beginning. It was just super transitional end to end. That's the kind of soccer I think you like to watch. I really enjoy watching the transitional side of soccer, the athletic ability that American soccer players have. So it was kind of fun to see. It reminded me a lot of the second half of the Angel City game. It was end to end soccer. People were
Yeah,
constantly running, and none of these players were giving up on it either. No one was slowing down or trying to slow down the game. It was fun. There was no let's pass it around the back line and see who's open. It was like, let's get forward, let's try things, and made it fun, made it for fun soccer to watch.
yeah, it was good for the neutrals. It was definitely good if you're not one of them.
Yes.
If you're a St. Louis fan, you're not happy with the result. If you're a Minnesota fan, but as a neutral, yeah, I like the end to end. I like the back and forth, and it wasn't like it was back and forth because there was such horrible defending. It was back and forth because the teams knew each other so well, and I mean,
Mhm.
themselves. They knew how they play, even though the way the game went. Man, St. Louis guys smile a lot. They're enjoying the game right now. They're really enjoying the game right now. The Brazilian up top, man, he had a smile on his face the whole time, and he made some mistakes and he did some things great. But it really, as a fan, really fun to watch a player enjoy the game, like have a
Mhm.
good time playing the game. It's usually when they're at their best too.
Yeah. Heading over to Nashville, the 2022 NWSL MVP of the league, the Golden Boot winner, and a Nashville Nashville SC forward, and Hani Mutar reportedly got married on March 21st at Geodis Park. Now we saw this. Tony Husband was calling the game for Nashville, mentioned that he had gotten married. There's no pictures anywhere of him and his fiance Ashley. However, Ashley did post on her social media platforms, changed her last name to Mutar. So for me, I don't know about you, Scotty. That to me is kind of like, yeah, they probably did get married. There's so many directions we can go on this topic. Just to quote my favorite comedian Heather McMahon, absolutely not. You will never catch me dead getting married on any soccer field, football field, any stadium. That's just not the time and place for it. So, Scotty, before we go into the question of this topic, I want to hear your thoughts. Is this an absolutely not for you? Would you have married Kirsten on a soccer field? I can't see her saying yes to that at all. That would
Uh,
be like the
I
end of
would
the relationship.
absolutely not. I would not get married on a soccer field. I would not get engaged using the jumbotron at any sporting
No.
event. I would no. This is something between me and my wife, my fiance, my girlfriend, and it's a special moment. Maybe family members would be there, but definitely not on a soccer field. I'm First of all, Kirsten really is not even a big soccer fan. She likes watching me play soccer, and she likes watching my daughter play soccer.
Yeah.
She doesn't like watching soccer games. It's not her thing. I was lucky to even be allowed to play the night before I got married in a soccer game. So I'd like to thank her for letting me play in
Wow,
my
that's like really
indoor game.
nice.
It was family came in. I had 11 points though that game, so that's pretty good. I was on
Oh,
a high, I guess. Yeah, I had a good game.
well, at least you
The
didn't get
guys were also
hurt.
pretty cool. No, I didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Nope, I did not get hurt. And they were letting me take we used to have shootout goals in indoor. They had great rules back in the day in indoor. It was super high flying, high intensity. But they let me take some shootout goals. I got 11 points in the game. I had a great game. But yeah, as far as getting married, no, no, thank you. No, no,
I, I,
no
I
chance.
you made a good point because I don't know anything about Hani's fiance and now reportedly, we'll say reportedly, wife and Ashley. She does not, what I saw on the internet, she doesn't look like a soccer player or an athlete in any form. So this is Hani's thing. Like a soccer field is his thing. That is his place, not hers. Normally, when you get married, it's like a church or where she grew up, or it's a wedding venue where it's yours collectively. To me, this reads just his place. And maybe she loves supporting him and wants to be in that environment and do it there. And my prediction is this was for them legally to get married and they'll eventually have a big wedding afterwards. Maybe that's why they're not showing or sharing any pictures right now. But to me, I don't think I could get married in somebody else's environment. That just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, no, we touched on we talked a little bit about this topic earlier in the week, me and you, and what if he gets traded?
Yes, yes, that was my other point. Like,
What
Nashville has to be
now?
your place.
Right? Like you can't score a goal where you get in your basically your wedding chapel stadium. You
No.
got to feel terrible about it. Like I don't know. Like I mean, and then if it did happen, if I'm Nashville, why isn't stuff out? This is
I
for
know.
that for Nashville. This is fantastic. This is great. Like we're such an awesome organization, and our stadium is so cool that players want to get married here. Like I would have that out. I don't know why we're getting reports of it, and there's rumors about it, and then there's the pieces that we can follow kind of lead us in this direction. But yeah, like man, soccer's a business and it's gotten more and more a business every day. And the MLS is a huge business in
Right.
soccer. And like, so people are getting traded. And what if things go wrong? And like, to me, like, I said to you when I was the coach of the Railhawks, when we decided to mutually split ways, I was disgusted with the organization, just the way they were, what the path they were going, and like what they wanted out of the game of soccer. So I got rid of all my stuff. Well, now it's not the Railhawks; they're called NCFC, and I'm like, dang, I should have never got rid of my stuff. But like, you get traded, and you're like, dang, I never should have married her. Like you can't take that one back. Like, so I don't
Yeah,
have a
no.
sweatshirt and a couple hats anymore. But like every day I'm gonna be like super mad at Nashville, and then I'm gonna come down for breakfast, and my wife's gonna be there. I'm like, God, why did you let us get married in the stadium?
Well,
I'd
and
be so miserable.
they have so many pieces around him. And we mentioned off the top, he's a superstar in this league. He's a superstar for Nashville. Like, go to PR, go to marketing and say, hey, me and my wife want to get married tomorrow. What venue outside of Geodis Park can we get married at? Because I'll tell you, Nashville has a ton of beautiful venues. So my sister lives there, and just a lot of famous people live there. I know there's money in that town to house a beautiful wedding, even if it's just the two of you and someone's officiating it. I just don't think the spot. I mean, speaking of just engagements and marriages, I saw, the Savannah Bananas, right? The minor
Yeah,
league
yeah,
baseball
yeah.
team. Someone posted on TikTok, one of the players posted that during the game, a couple got married on the pitcher's mound, and the players were the bridesmaids and the groomsmen. I was just like, what?
It's
That's
so romantic.
so romantic and not it. A bunch of people you don't know are there. And that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, like I wonder what Mukhtar did after. Like, what did they go
Right.
eat? Like, just some red hot chicken or something? Like, I don't get it. Like, he really went the whole Nashville route here.
I know they go
listen to
to
listen to some country and some blues music, and had some red hots. And I don't know. I'm not getting married in the stadium. No chance. No way.
no chance, no chance. But we do have to preface this with, if you were to get married in an American stadium, where would it be and why?
Oof. Well, I would have to go with the Garden, Madison Square Garden, because I'm a huge Knicks fan.
Okay.
And if they said, "Where did you get married?" I would not have to say the Garden. I could always just say the Mecca. That's
Yes.
why I would do it. That's why I would do it. I'd be good because I'm a Knicks fan, but it's known as the Garden's known as the Mecca. So you're like, oh my! People think I got married somewhere like in Rome or something. Where'd you get married? The Mecca, and it was really just Madison Square Garden.
You don't have to explain.
I wouldn't explain anything other than that. Just the Mecca.
I thought about this. I actually thought about this for a fairly long time yesterday when I was putting together the rundown. I decided on a Accenture Field, which used to be called, or Accenture Stadium. It used to be called Heinz Stadium when I was growing up. Heinz Field. It's where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. Because I will forever and always clearly be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So that place will never be a place where I'll go in and not cheer for the home team. There would be Permane Brothers, Iron City Beer, and of course margaritas, because I'm a huge tequila fan and you can't not have margaritas at your wedding. And the reason why Heinz Field is so special is the best birthday present I ever received was in 7th grade. It was after my middle school basketball game. Have you ever been to Danny's Barbecue in Morrisville?
Yeah,
I love Danny's Barbecue. Is it still there?
it's still there.
Yes. So we were there, and my parents gave me tickets to the Jacksonville Jaguar Pittsburgh Steeler playoff game. I don't remember
Nice.
what year it was, but I was so thrilled. It was snowing growing up in Cary. Like, we never saw snow. So I thought it was so cool that we got to see that in a sporting environment. So that to me like has so many core memories for me. I went with my dad and a good friend at the time. I got to paint my face, and it was to this day like the coolest sporting experience because back then like Ben Roethlisberger was good. I think we had to leave at halftime. My dad made us leave because it was too cold, but and then we came back and won. So I was pissed about that. But yeah, so I'm going with Heinz Field, and now it's called Accenture Stadium. And Bill Cowher, while we're at it, just let him. He'll
That's right.
appreciate the
Wolfpack.
wedding.
Wolfpack.
His daughter played basketball there, right?
He went there, and then I think his
Yeah.
daughters went. A couple of his daughters went. Did he have two daughters, maybe?
2 or 3, yes.
Yeah, I think two of them might have went to state. I'm not positive, but
Yeah.
I know he was there. I know that. Saw his face around the sporting places all the time.
Yeah. No, I think he still lives in Raleigh. I mean, he obviously does the NFL pregame show, but I think he is a Raleigh person now, just because his kids live in the South. But to go on with my absolutely nots and just things that I don't understand in the sporting soccer, maybe men's world in general, is after watching the U.S. men's national team against El Salvador, it really stuck out to me how long their shorts were. And not only were they long, but they were baggy. So I bring this to you, Scotty. Can you explain to me, why is Christian Pulisic, and I don't think you'll be able to answer this, and I don't think I'll ever agree, but why is he wearing shorts that are basically down to his ankles? It doesn't look
Yeah,
comfortable.
I think it's cool to as a fan, as a player, you have your style, you have your look, you have what you like to. And when we talk about this, I am not as baggy as Christian Pulisic. I'm not trying to be part of the Fab Five, but I liked longer shorts too. I
Yeah.
did like longer shorts, but I'm a little taller and skinnier of a player, much taller than Pulisic, and I'm a thinner player. So, but I wore baggy shorts and my socks down, and I never tucked my shirt in. That's just my style. That's just the way I felt comfortable. You have to like the way you look, I think, first in order to help play good
Mm-hmm.
at any level. But you have to like your look. Like my daughter this year is wearing her socks lower. And for her, we were talking about, I was like, well, you don't really get a chance because you get your shorts are given to you. Whereas Pulisic is getting specific shorts. They're Nike, but they're designed for him. His shirt is fitted towards the way he likes to wear it. It's not like he just gets a Nike shirt from the national team.
No.
It's specific to the way he wears it. So I don't know why his are so baggy
So
because
bad.
it looks like he has no knees because then he wears his socks up. So his shorts go right to his socks, and like he has no. You don't ever see any skin.
No.
But I do know that baggy shorts are a Argentine thing. And the Argentines right now, after winning the World Cup, are the best team. And there's a lot of players now that are starting to go to the baggy shorts. There are certain players that wear them too tight for me. And actually, I like his look, but Jack Grealish for Man City, he's so big and so thick and so strong, but his shorts look like they painted him on. But when you have legs like him,
Why
you can
not?
get away with it,
Yeah.
right? You can get away with it. There's a couple other players that have different styles, but then like Luke Shaw for Man U, I think like he looked like a slob out there. And again, he could be doing certain things. When I was in college, I'm so old that there was no shin guard rule when I first started playing, and I don't think it came into play until like my second year as a pro, maybe first year as a pro. So when I would play with club teams, not NC State, but I would stay in Raleigh and we would all play together. I would wear like these lime green cotton pajama shorts and Argyle socks when I played. And then whatever the color of I think we wore T-shirts at the time. I think it was Blue Moon Travel Agency was our sponsor. So we were known as Blue Moon. That was actually the name of our team. But there was a couple guys that were played with me and they were national team players with me and they would wear all their national gear. And they're like, why are you dressed like the way what are you wearing into a game? And I was like, by the time these guys realize I'm good, we're already winning 2-0. Because when you first look at me, you're like, I always call it the white man can't jump syndrome. That's how I would do it. I'd make myself look worse than I really was and look sloppy and like I shouldn't be on the field. And then
Mm-hmm.
I would be the player that I was. But for certain guys, yeah, it's just their style of look. And then you're right. I think it's for us, we have that great ability to be like, what the hell is Pulisic wearing today?
Totally.
What is Luke Shaw wearing? Why is this guy why does the big thing now in soccer is we wear our socks. They're not really low, but they're folded. So like you have like 3 inches between your knee and like when I was playing, you either had your socks all the way to your knee, your sock over your knee, or your
Mm-hmm.
socks low. Now there's this look like it almost looks like they just put them to the top of their shin guard. So whatever size their shin guard is, that's where they put them. because sometimes it doesn't look like it's even comfortable to be out there, like to look.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I used to always wear an extra large shirt. But I would go to the referee before the games and say, "Hey, look, man, these guys always pull my shirt when I dribble. Can you keep an eye on that?" But because my shirt was extra large, it always flapped in the wind. So I would get calls that not necessarily I wasn't really being pulled on. It's just that's the way my shirt did because I always liked an extra large shirt when I played. So like
Yeah.
I don't know, but every player has their like style, like their and maybe it's a
Sure.
player from back in the day. Maybe his dad wore baggy shorts. I don't really remember him wearing baggy shorts. I used to play against Pulisic's dad. We had some pretty good battles, but I don't know why every player does what they do. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a Pulisic fan necessarily. I think he cries a little bit too much on the field. So usually when I'm not a fan, I don't like anything about him. So I agree. I don't like his shorts being so baggy.
It just
I don't know why he does it.
from a practical standpoint too, like when I used to play, it wasn't a thing in college, but I remember playing for Castle growing up. Girls were only allowed to roll their shorts once. Obviously, you don't want to like roll them all the way up, but that was a rule, and we always had to have our shirts tucked in, which I kind of like now. But with Pulisic and anybody who's wearing their shorts super long, you have to like roll them up and tuck them under your spandex. Otherwise, you're just it's hard to get full extension in your legs if you have
When
pants.
you need to stretch and you
Literally,
have a restriction on you
right?
because your leg catches the seam of the short and then you're trying to I agree.
Yeah.
Whenever I liked them a certain length, I like a certain look, but then it had to work for the game too. I was a player that played based on speed and aggression. So like too baggy would be too much and too thin, too small usually means I had really bad raspberries because I love slide tackling. So like I needed protection to a certain length of my leg because I slid so much. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that players have their own style. For me, I like how Ali Long looks when she plays. I like
Yeah.
Mbappe the way he plays. I like Messi's look. There's players that I like. Verratti, I like his look. Certain players I just like their style fits their style of play, and I enjoy it as not just I like the fashion part of what every player brings because you're trying to get into their mind as a player, as a coach, as a fan. I try to like, what are they thinking? What are they doing? What are they? Because the more you know about a player, the more you understand of how they're going to play in this particular game
Yeah.
per
I like
se.
I like Rose Lavelle's look where her shorts are like rolled enough and then she's got the socks over her knees. And then for me, Denise O'Sullivan, having the tucked in shirt with your shorts at a perfect length, that just fits her as a soccer player so
Correct.
well. Classy, put together, does her job, isn't flashy, doesn't want to be pretentious, does what she needs to do and doesn't gain all the attention. But when she was playing in the all white kit against San Diego with the shirt tucked in, she stood out to me because she's the only player out there who looked, in my opinion, professional.
I would love to know too, because to me, when I watch, and not many people tuck their shirt in anymore, and I wasn't a shirt tucked in guy. I wasn't my style at all. It never
Yeah,
has
I
been.
couldn't see that.
But O'Sullivan reminds me not just the way she looks dressed wise, but the way she plays. She reminds me of Roy Keane, who played for Man U, who is Irish. So this
Uh,
might be someone that she watched growing up, and he tucked his shirt in. He always had. If his shirt it wasn't tucked in, he just got a red card, and he was in a fight or something. That's just. But he was always put together. It was back in the day where you wore tassels, and he had his tassels in that kept his socks up. His sock was always the same length. His shorts were always the same. Shirt was always tucked in. And there's things like, and it's not really part of the game now, and I think a lot of players don't understand it. But like I said, when I played and there was no shin guards, when you wore your socks down, it was telling the other team that you were not afraid of them, that they couldn't hurt you. Not everybody wore shin guards, but when you wore your socks up, you were saying you were giving respect to the other team. When you wore your socks down, it was a sign of disrespect to the other team. Like there was things in the game that, oh, this guy's got his socks down. Like, watch, this guy's gonna get tackled. The other team's gonna be mad that he's got his socks down. So, like for me, I wore my socks down super low. In some games, I was so disrespectful, I tucked them underneath my cleats. Like, so I folded them around. Like,
mhm.
and I saw an old player play for Denmark once, Søren Lerby, and I was like, I'm gonna wear my socks like that. Now I ruined every game. I ruined a pair of socks, but
Right.
that was the type of player I was. I was saying, I'm not afraid of you. You can't hurt me. You can't tackle me. You can't get to me. So nowadays is there a mindset of a player going into it saying maybe he Pulisic is a big Michigan fan, like the Fat Five. I don't know, and they wore their shorts real baggy those years. I don't know.
I
I
I
don't
think
think
so.
that the style of player he is, his look doesn't fit his style of play.
Right.
He looks like he would want to be more aerodynamic, basically, and
Yeah.
he's got these big baggy parachute shorts floating around out there on the field.
Yeah, like he could jump off a what's it called? A skyscraper and be fine.
He'd be all
He's
right.
got
He'd
so
be all
much
right.
parachute. Real quick, and next time I really want to touch on the hairstyles. I've seen some good stuff in NWSL, MLS. It's very interesting and fun. One of them being Natalie Jacobs for Houston. She's got these two buns on the back, but that's for another day. We'll definitely touch on that because it's a fun aspect of the game. Real quick, before we get to our yellow pennies, because we don't have much time left. The Bay Area was announced this week. They're getting a team in 2024 to the NWSL. Allie Wagner, Leslie Osborne, and a few other are a part of bringing this team to California. To me, I think it's great. California is a huge soccer state. So many people play the sport here in California, and having a third team that's in between OL Reign, Portland, and you have LA and San Diego underneath them, it's going to bring what you mentioned, continuity, but also just California having soccer up in Northern California. I know they do love the game. They have a professional MLS team in San Jose, and bringing in an NWSL team will certainly help grow the league starting in 2024.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think when you have teams that are closer in proximity, it makes it a better rivalry because the fans can get involved more. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just a rivalry on the field. It's a fan thing. So fans are going to want to travel. Like the St. Louis game, there was Minnesota. They had a good traveling party. So like when they scored, they were excited and they were trying to cheer louder than the St. Louis fans. So I think when you have that proximity, it makes the games that much more interesting, that much more fierce, that much more exciting because the fan base is closer. And I think that's one of the reasons why in England it works so well. They're just so close to each other. You got so many derbies. You got your London derbies, you got your Manchester derbies, you got your Merseyside derbies because I can work with you as a colleague and we both cheer for a separate team. So then as the week goes, the rivalry gets more and more. And I'll be at next level and I know the kids' teams and who they like. And then they come in and if they have a Monday session and we play their team on the weekend, I'll be like, well, I can't talk to you this week because our teams are playing each other. So like I have that banter with the players because they have a team and I have a team and we're playing. So I can only imagine being sitting in a cubicle somewhere and the guy next to me is the team I'm playing this weekend. I would just think that
Yeah.
would be an awesome day of a week of work to be like, oh, we're going to kill you this week. Oh no, we're going to do this. Oh, and then stuff's getting leaked out all week. So like, oh, I heard Firmino's not playing. He's not making the trip. Oh, they're talking about getting a new coach. And you have that banter going back and then it all accumulates on game day now. So I think that's going to be really good. The only thing, and I think there's one team's not going to do anything, but as I was watching this weekend the NWSL and we watched some of the MLS games, I don't want us to get so big that we're watering down the talent. Because
Completely
when
agree.
I watch the MLS and I watch the NWSL, there's no watering down in the NWSL. All those players are coming off the bench, and you're like, that player's on the bench. Whereas players come off the bench in the MLS, and I don't know them, and then when they play, I'm like, well, that's why I don't know you because it's a watered. The league is getting so big, it's getting watered down, and I think we need to do a better job of going back to the youth. We need better players. We need better players then because the NWSL it's fun to watch every game. Every game's a good game. I don't think North Carolina played great, but they were in the game. It was fun to watch. It wasn't terrible soccer. It was good soccer. The
Mhm.
Wave are just better. Where then I can watch some of the MLS games and you're like,
Yeah.
is there another game on? Because I can't watch this anymore
Too
at
many
times.
too many teams, and sometimes it feels like an MLS, and when you're trying to cover it or you're trying to be a fan of a league, it's easier when right now NWSL only has 12 teams. They're expanding also Utah as well. So 14 next season. It is kind of getting to that point where it's like now you can follow each team, the players on the roster, what's happening, the trades being made. It's fun because you're not working on overtime. And what did you say? You say it's getting watered down? What is that New York
Water?
accent? No.
Yeah, it's
Say it again. Say it again. Water.
water. Yeah.
What? Your New
Listen,
York
I have a
accent
few,
doesn't come out often, but when it does,
only a couple drawers. Put something in the drawer.
does North Carolina not rubbed off on you? I feel like it never rubbed off on me. My
I
parents are from the
try
north.
my hardest not to let North Carolina accent rub off on me. In our house, we have a saying: only my daughter is allowed to say the word "y'all" because she was born in North Carolina, so she's allowed to say it. But me and my wife's from Ohio, and I'm from New Jersey, so we do everything we can to not say the word y'all because
Yeah.
that is totally Southern. And we're not Southerners. We just happen to live in the South now. But yeah, I try my hardest to keep parts of my New Jersey accent with me.
You live
Water's
in
an easy one.
you live in the
Water's easy.
Yeah, no, that's an identifier right there. I remember when I went to Penn State and people were speaking like saying water. There was a few other accents. They hate how in the South we pronounce our I's like our E's and our E's like our I's, like Emmy instead of Emmy.
Yeah.
Just a tangent there. So to wrap it up, we got to hit up our yellow pennies. I will go first this week. Pretty simple one. We've talked about goals. We've seen some really good goals, but we haven't seen any good goal celebrations. You mentioned the St. Louis goal where the player was putting his ears out, trying to listen for the city fans to be loud. It wasn't good enough. We need something fun. We need something drawing attention. Kansas City's midfielder and Lola Bonta, she's so good. She comes up with ideas. The only player who really drafts ideas. It's a good branding idea to come up with something, be funny, be creative. You could potentially get, a partnership out of it. So I think both leagues need to step it up. We haven't seen one good goal celebration this season, and it's not good enough. It's just not.
I agree. And we at Next Level, when we scrimmage, we'll have certain days where we're just scrimmage days. And we tell the kids, if you score and you don't celebrate, we do not count your goal.
Good.
You have to celebrate. You have to. If we are here to entertain. Soccer is a business of entertainment. It's a sports business to entertain. The fans are there to see something. Celebrate on the road. Make the fans not like you. That's okay. It's okay not to be liked. It is okay.
Yeah.
When I was playing indoor at the time of my career, when indoor was still really big and real fun to play and had some really talented players, the WWE was real big. So like our entire team's goal celebrations were based on WWE wrestlers celebrations. So they were like out of control, like out of control. But we did it really big. And then when teams would play us, their celebrations were our celebrations back in our face. And because they didn't all watch WWE, we just happened to have a couple kids on our team that were huge WWE, and they got us all all involved because they loved it so much. But our celebrations were WWE. And then I played on a team once a long time ago, and we went to a tournament, and every time we scored, none of us celebrated with each other. We just all turned around and did the Donkey Kong back to our positions, like real slow. Like we just all turned after a goal, but for the whole tournament, and we won the whole thing. So we did like 6 games worth of Donkey Kongs back to our positions,
I don't
which
even
I
know who
always
that
think was
is.
hilarious.
I like
Donkey
that.
Kong's an old video game, but he had this weird movement.
Oh,
That's all he could do.
right.
So we were like, we all played video games back in the day. You sit in the lobbies of the hotels. They had video games back then.
Right.
And, you all got your quarters up there and you play Donkey Kong and see who could get the high score. So we were playing we were like, God, we should all just Donkey Kong back to our position after goals, like on the first night. And we were like, let's do it. And we were a really good team. So we got the Donkey Kong like 40 something times in 6 games.
My gosh. That's fun though. That's exciting. And if
Right.
anybody
It's like, and it brings the team together.
Yes, absolutely. It brings a little levity to the sport and it's fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's sport. It's not rocket science. So if anybody
Correct.
watching, listening, sees something that we don't see, please send it to us and we will certainly feature it and talk about it because that's a fun part of the game and we want to talk about it here
Correct.
on Straight from the Pitch. All right, Scotty, real quick, what's your yellow penny of the week?
So mine is kind of similar to yours, where it's not like a specific person. It's more of kind of maybe the media or maybe the fans. So this weekend was the NCAA,
Mm,
and I like both sides. I like both sides of soccer, and I thought the women's was amazing, and I thought the storylines in the women maybe were a little bit better than the men's side, which is great. I like the men's side. Granted, State didn't do very well, but on the men's side, we had like a whole bunch of underdogs make it to the Final Four compared to where they were during the season.
hmm
On the girls' side, we had some teams with some spectacular players beat the superstar. We had Goliath beat David. But my thing was Caitlin Clark, phenomenal. I love her as a player. I hope she goes pro so we can watch her play. I'm sure she will. But she talks a lot of smack, and I don't mind that one single bit. As a fan, as a player, as a coach, I don't mind that. That's part of it to me. Getting in another player's head, doing that. But this weekend, when the girl from LSU retaliated and talked the same smack, not different smack, basically the same smack that Caitlin Clark had been doing all tournament, everybody got up in arms about it. Like, that's part of the game. You're going to talk trash. I was a hard-nosed tackling, maybe a dirty player. So when I got tackled, I accepted it. Like, I deserved it. I've been hitting people for years. So when someone hit me, get up, wipe yourself off, and get
Right.
on with it. So this girl's going to talk trash on everybody. I mean, in the South Carolina game, she was waving the player off, standing like, "Go ahead, shoot, you stink. You ain't
Yes.
going to score." And then she did the John Cena, "I can't see you, I can't see you." And then when the girl did it to her, granted, maybe because she was up 17, but it's the finals. Nobody's going into the NCAA finals thinking they're going to win by 17 points or whatever they won by. So she talks smack. And then she said, I got a ring. You ain't got no ring. Don't, be careful who you talk to. And then I just thought, like, for everybody to get all bent out of shape about it, like, it's ridiculous. That's part of the game. Let's deal with it. It's not everybody's part of the game, but there are certain players that need to use everything they can in order to gain an advantage. Caitlin Clark is a great player. She also tries to get into your head. She also tries to get you rattled. So other players tried to do it to her. She scored 30 points. She did good, but she didn't win. Now we have the right to talk. If you don't want to get talked smack to, win. Win every game. So for me, the yellow shirt is, let's take it easy, everybody. Let's not be so hypercritical of people and so take everything so offensively. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
It's part of the game. People talk trash on each other.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Because it was on a national stage, we maybe saw it more in the national championship game. So I agree. Why not? Do what you want. It's sport. It's fun.
Right.
Be creative.
Right.
Be fun. Draw attention to yourself. LSU, make some money off of it. Caitlin Clark, make some money off of it. Why not? NIL is there for a reason. So
correct.
I agree. Scotty, this was a great show. I love that we come to the conclusion that you should never get married at a stadium or any place that's not a wedding venue or a church. That's a good conclusion. We got more NWSL and MLS coming up. The U.S. Women's National Team this week. We'll be watching it all. Make sure to comment below. Let us know what you think of the show. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple, and make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at SFTP Pod. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Have a great week.